Oh, is it Mateus? Is that how you say your name?
Yes, yes, this is my name.
Hi, nice to
Mar
meet you.
Nice to meet you, Maureen. Maureen?
My name's Maureen.
Maureen.
It's like the word more
More? Yes, I know.
and then een, Maureen.
Maureen.
Perfect. And where are you from, Mateus?
I'm from Brazil.
Oh, okay. So it's a very exciting time to be in Brazil.
Yes, I think.
Are you excited for the World Cup?
I really don't like too much soccer,
hmm
but I'm excited to see one scientist that I like. He will show his his research in a project called Walk Again.
Oh, what's that about?
It's about control exoskeleton. I think exoskeleton. I don't know how to.
You want to type it into the chat if you know how to. So
It's
the
like
button.
oh okay exo. I think X the well another name I don't know. Skeleton something like that. I don't know, but it's like people that are tetraplegic
Okay.
can
Yeah. So.
walk again with this equipment.
Oh. Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. An exoskeleton?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So an exoskeleton, it's like having your skeleton on the outside, having your bones on the outside.
Yeah, that's like robot.
Oh, yeah, cool. And where is this presentation happening?
We will be having the first game of in the Open World Cup open
Okay,
game.
the opening.
Uh-huh.
Cool. I'll have to check that out.
Nice.
And
I
that's very exciting. So are you interested in science?
Yeah, I'm interested in neuroscience.
Great. Well, you might like our talk and discussion today because it's about science, about biology.
Nice. I like.
Good. Well, it's nice to meet you, and thanks for joining my class.
Thank you.
Let's see who else we have here. We have Luis. Hi, Luis. Are you there?
Yes. Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
This is doing well.
Yes. And where are you from, Luis?
From Brazil.
Oh, another person from Brazil. Great. And how do you feel about the World Cup?
World Cup. Uh, I'm not exactly excited about the World Cup. I don't like football very much.
No. Are you not a big soccer fan?
No,
Yeah.
I'm not.
You would fit in here in the United States. We don't really have a lot of soccer fans here. It's not very
Yes,
popular.
I hear about.
hmm
Yes,
Um,
I've heard about.
hmm I would go to the World Cup, but I don't like crowds of people, so I don't think I would like that part,
That's part I don't like either.
the crowds. Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm well, you can always stay at home and watch it on your TV. Let's see, who else do we have in our class today? We've got Ming. Hi, Ming.
Hi, hi, I'm back.
Long time no
See ya.
see.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, for everyone else, Ming was in my class 2 hours ago. Um, and then we got a few new students. Let's see, is it Talita?
Yes.
That's a very interesting picture. Are you holding a sea lion?
Yes, it's a seal.
Oh, a seal. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you work in marine biology?
No, actually I'm a veterinary student, and I took a picture. This picture, I was in a rehabilitation center in
Mm-hmm.
Holland, and for 2 months doing
Uh-huh.
an internship there. So
Mm-hmm. And did you rescue that seal?
yes.
Wow. What's its name?
It's a Holland name, so I don't know how to pronounce.
Okay. Yeah, you could say it's a Dutch name.
Yeah, it's a Dutch name, so I don't know how to pronounce this.
Yeah, me neither. I don't know how to pronounce words in Dutch very well at all.
Yes.
And where do you come from originally?
Brazil as
Oh,
well.
wow, a bunch of Brazilians today. And
Mhm.
are you excited about the World Cup?
No.
No one's excited about the World Cup.
No.
Why not? Do you not like crowds as well?
Um, Actually, I don't like soccer, and I think the country is not prepared to receive this kind of event. So
Wow.
I'm not excited
Is
about this.
there's not enough room or infrastructure?
Yeah, and construction.
Mhm. Okay, well, I hope everything goes well.
Yeah, me too.
Should be fun if, once it gets started, I think you'll have fun if you're in Brazil. It's like an energy in the air.
Yes.
And hopefully there's no more of those vuvuzelas.
Yes, please.
I don't like those. They were all over Germany when I lived in Germany during the last World Cup,
Mhm.
and I couldn't sleep for weeks because I'd hear that all the time. Yeah.
So you speak German
Hmm.
as well?
Yeah.
Fluently?
Not like a native speaker, but yes. I mean, I can
Oh,
have a
right.
conversation in German.
Great.
I take German lessons too, so I keep studying, and it's good to study languages as a teacher because you know what it's like to be a student.
Yeah, it's pretty difficult,
Hmm.
German.
German is really it's difficult in some ways, but in other ways not so much. I think the grammar is challenging, but the vocabulary is not. Everything makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
The pronunciation as well.
Yeah, it's not as difficult as English pronunciation because
Yeah.
it's more standard.
Yes.
True. Well, it's nice to meet you, Talita.
Nice to meet you.
And we also have another new student. Is it Jose? Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Jose. How are
I'm
you?
from fine. I'm from Brazil too.
Wow, all these Brazilians. Did you
Yeah,
all decide to go on Verbling today?
yeah,
And have you taken some classes before?
yeah. Some, not much, because I, I stay out my hometown during last May.
Oh, okay. So you were out of town.
Yes,
Oh, well, now you're back and you can study some English.
maybe
Hmm.
let's see.
Good. Well, welcome to my class.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And we've got Amaudi with us. Hi, Amaudi. Are you there?
Yes, teacher. Hi.
Hi. And where are you from, Amaudi?
I'm from Mexico,
Oh, okay. And what part of Mexico?
the north of Mexico,
Hmm.
Monterrey.
Oh, okay. And are you excited for the World Cup?
Oh, yes, I am, teacher.
Yeah,
I would
finally,
like to
someone's
be
excited.
in Brazil.
And do you think Mexico is going to win?
No, I don't think so, teacher. I'm very realistic.
Mm, yeah. I don't think the USA is going to win either.
Yeah, maybe.
Who do you think is going to win?
I'm pretty sure that Brazil will make it.
What do the Brazilians think? Is Brazil going to win the World Cup?
No.
No.
I think yes.
Yes?
Or Argentina or Brazil.
Hmm. They tend to be very good at soccer, so we'll see. We'll see. And our other student, we've got, so is it, I always forget, is it AKA?
Yes, AKA Ken. Yes,
AKA
AKA.
Ken, can I just call you Ken?
Yeah, sure.
I'll call you Ken. So,
Yes.
Ken, where do you come from again?
From Japan.
That's right. Does Japan have a team in the World Cup?
Yes.
And are they going to
Japan
win?
barely joined World Cup. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for coming to my class again. It's good to see you again. And we also got David, who's back with us. Hi, David.
Hi, teacher.
And David, you can tell everyone in the class where you're from.
Brazil.
We have a class full of Brazilians today. I think half of
Yeah.
you, more than half of you, are from Brazil. So let's get started now that we have everyone. Today we're going to be watching a video. It's called a TED Talk. And TED Talks are these very interesting series of lectures about different subjects. So they're about education, technology, development, and this one is particularly about biology and about language. So I thought it was the perfect lecture for a Verbling class. This class is a listening class, so the majority of the class will be watching the video, and then we'll have a chance to have a discussion. And you can have the link to the video. Let me send that to you if you'd like to watch it on your own time as well. The great thing about TED Talks is they come with subtitles. So you can watch this on your own computer if you have the sound off, or you can watch it on my screen because I'm going to do a screen share. And the great thing is you can follow along with the subtitles. And it's a listening exercise, so listen for unfamiliar words and phrases. And if you hear any unfamiliar words, write them down so we can use them in our discussion. Okay? So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. And you can see there's a picture of a woman, and the title of her essay is What Separates Us from Chimpanzees? And this is from Jane Goodall. Does anyone know who Jane Goodall is?
I've
No.
already heard.
Talita, yes?
Yes, I've already heard the name of this woman, but I know that she works with chimpanzees, but
Yeah.
only.
Yeah, so
Is she the lady from the movie Tarzan?
well, it's funny that you say that because in Tarzan there's a woman named Jane, and she is the one who interacts with who meets Tarzan, and you could say it's based on her, but I don't think it actually is because the story of Tarzan is older than Jane Goodall.
Oh, okay.
But it's funny because her name is Jane in the story. It's Tarzan and Jane. But Jane Goodall has a similar story. She's a biologist from England, and she went into the wilds of Africa to study the chimpanzees. So chimpanzees are a type of primate, and we're all primates, like apes, chimpanzees, and humans are all related. So she's referred to as a primatologist or primatologist, someone who studies apes. And what she did was, from a very young age, she lived with chimpanzees. And she learned about their customs. And she saw that they had their own way to communicate, and that they did things like they used tools. So she learned all these things about chimpanzees and saw the connection between chimpanzees and humans. So this video is about her discussing the differences between humans and chimpanzees. So if you want to follow along, you can click on the link, but you have to turn off your sound. And I'm going to play the video on my computer as well, but without subtitles. And
But we are able to hear your sound as well.
yes, when I take out my headphones, you'll be able to hear the sound.
Okay.
But if you prefer, you can watch it on a separate, like at a separate time. But you'll have to turn down the sound on Verbling, I think. I'm not sure how that would work, but maybe it's best to follow along to my video.
Okay.
Okay? And when I was at my university, I met Jane Goodall, and she was absolutely fascinating. So I thought you would enjoy watching this video. So without further ado, let's listen to a from Jane Goodall.
Their faces and parrot feathers on.
Sorry, starting it over.
Good morning, everyone. And I feel, first of all, it's been fantastic being here over these past few days. And secondly, I feel it's a great honor to kind of wind up this extraordinary gathering of people, these amazing talks that we've had. I feel that I've fitted in many ways to some of the things that I've heard. I started off I came directly here from the deep, deep tropical rainforest in Ecuador, where I was out. You could only get there by a plane, with indigenous people with paint on their faces and parrot feathers on their headdresses, where these people are fighting to try and keep the oil companies and keep the roads out of their forests. They're fighting to develop their own way of living within the forest in a world that's clean, a world that isn't contaminated, a world that isn't polluted. And what was so amazing to me, and what fits right in with what we're all talking about here at TED, is that there, right in the middle of this rainforest, was some solar panels, the first in that part of Ecuador, and that was mainly to bring water up by pump so that the women wouldn't have to go down. The water was cleaned, but because they got a lot of batteries, they were able to store a lot of electricity. So every house, and there were, I think, 8 houses in this little community, could have light for, I think it was about half an hour each evening. And there is the chief in all his regal finery with a laptop computer. And this man, he has been outside, but he's gone back. And he was saying, you know, we have suddenly jumped into a whole new era. And we didn't even know about the white man 50 years ago. Now here we are with laptop computers, and there are some things we want to learn from the modern world. We want to know about health care. We want to know about what other people do. We're interested in it. And we want to learn other languages. We want to know English and French and perhaps Chinese, and we're good at languages. So there he is with his little laptop computer, but fighting against the might of the pressures because of the debt, the foreign debt of Ecuador, fighting the pressure of World Bank, IMF, and of course the people who want to exploit the forests and take out the oil. So coming directly from there to here, but of course, my real field of expertise lies in an even different kind of civilization. I can't really call it a civilization, a different way of life from a different being. We've talked earlier, this wonderful talk by Wade Davis about the different cultures of the humans around the world. But the world is not composed only of human beings, there are also other animal beings. And I propose to bring into this TED conference, as I always do around the world, the voice of the animal kingdom. Too often we just see a few slides or a bit of film, but these beings have voices that mean something. And so I want to give you a greeting as from a chimpanzee in the forest of Tanzania. I've been studying chimpanzees in Tanzania since 1960. During that time, there have been modern technologies that have really transformed the way that field biologists do their work. For example, for the first time a few years ago, by simply collecting little fecal samples, we were able to have them analyzed, to have DNA profiling done. So for the first time, we actually know which male chimps are the fathers of each individual infant, because the chimps have a very promiscuous mating society. So this opens up a whole new avenue of research. And we use GSI, geographic, whatever it is, GSI anyway, to determine the range of the chimps. And we're using, you can see that I'm not really into this kind of stuff, but we're using satellite imagery to look at the deforestation in the area. And of course, there's developments in infrared, so you can watch animals at night, and equipment for recording by video and tape recording is getting lighter and better. So in many, many ways, we can do things today that we couldn't do when I began in 1960. Especially when chimpanzees and other animals with large brains are studied in captivity, modern technology is helping us to search for the upper levels of cognition in some of these non-human animals, so that we know today they're capable of performances that would have been thought absolutely impossible by science when I began. I think the chimpanzee in captivity who is the most skilled in intellectual performance is one called Ai in Japan. Her name means love, and she has a wonderfully sensitive partner working with her. She loves her computer. She'll leave her big group and her running water and her trees and everything, and she'll come in to sit at this computer. It's like a video game for a kid. She's hooked. She's 28, by the way. And she does things with her computer screen with a touchpad that she can do faster than most humans. She does very complex tasks, and I haven't got time to go into them. But the amazing thing about this female is she doesn't like making mistakes. If she has a bad run and her score isn't good, she'll come and reach up and tap on the glass because she can't see the experimenter, which is asking to have another go. And her concentration, she's already concentrated hard for 20 minutes or so, and now she wants to do it all over again just for the satisfaction of having done it better. And the food is not important. She does get a tiny reward like 1 raisin for a correct response, but she will do it for nothing if you tell her beforehand. So, you know, so here we are, a chimpanzee using a computer. Chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans also learn human sign language. But the point is that when I was first in Gombe in 1960, I remember so well, so vividly, as though it was yesterday, the first time when I was going through the vegetation. The chimpanzees were still running away from me for the most part, although some were a little bit acclimatized. And I saw this dark shape hunched over a termite mound. I peered with my binoculars. It was fortunately one adult male whom I'd named David Greybeard. And by the way, science at that time was telling me that I shouldn't name the chimps. They should all have numbers. That was more scientific. Anyway, David Greybeard. And I saw that he was picking little pieces of grass and using them to fish termites from their underground nest. And not only that, he would sometimes pick a leafy twig and strip the leaves, modifying an object to make it suitable for a specific purpose, the beginning of tool making. The reason this was so exciting and such a breakthrough is at that time, it was thought that humans and only humans used and made tools. When I was at school, we were defined as man, the tool maker. So that when Louis Leakey, my mentor, heard this news, he said, we must now redefine man, redefine tool, or accept chimpanzees as humans. We now know that at Gombe alone, there are 9 different ways in which chimpanzees use different objects for different purposes. Moreover, we know that in different parts of Africa, wherever chimps are being studied, there are completely different tool-using behaviors. And because it seems that these patterns are passed from one generation to the next through observation, imitation, and practice, that is a definition of human culture. What we find is that over these 40-odd years that I and others have been studying chimpanzees and the other great apes, and as I say, other mammals with complex brains and social systems, we have found that after all, there isn't a sharp line dividing humans from the rest of the animal kingdom. It's a very wuzzy line. It's getting wuzzier all the time as we find animals doing things that we, in our arrogance, used to think was just human. The chimps, there's no time to discuss their fascinating lives, but they have this long childhood, 5 years of suckling and sleeping with the mother, and then another 3, 4, or 5 years of emotional dependence on her, even when the next child is born. The importance of learning in that time when behavior is flexible, and there's an awful lot to learn in chimpanzee society. The long-term, affectionate, supportive bonds that develop throughout this long childhood with the mother, with the brothers and sisters, and which can last through a lifetime, which may be up to 60 years. They can actually live longer than 60 in captivity. So we've only done 40 years in the wild so far. And we find chimps are capable of true compassion and altruism. We find in their non-verbal communication, this is very rich. They have a lot of sounds which they use in different circumstances, but they also use touch, posture, gesture. And what do? They kiss, they embrace, they hold hands, they pat one another on the back, they swagger, they shake their fist. The kind of things that we do, and they do them in the same kind of context. They have very sophisticated cooperation. Sometimes they hunt, not that often, but when they hunt, they show sophisticated cooperation, and they share the prey. We find that they show emotions similar to, maybe sometimes the same, as those that we describe in ourselves as happiness, sadness, fear, despair. They know mental as well as physical suffering, and I don't have time to go into the information that would prove some of these things to you, save to say that there are very bright students in the best universities studying emotions in animals, studying personalities in animals. We know that chimpanzees and some other creatures can recognize themselves in mirrors, self as opposed to other. They have a sense of humor. And these are the kind of things which traditionally have been thought of as human prerogatives. But this teaches us a new respect, and it's a new respect not only for the chimpanzees, I suggest, but some of the other amazing animals with whom we share this planet. Once we're prepared to admit that after all, we're not the only beings with personalities, minds, and above all, feelings, and then we start to think about ways we use and abuse so many other sentient, sapient creatures on this planet, it really gives cause for deep shame, at least for me. So the sad thing is that these chimpanzees, who perhaps taught us more than any other creature a little humility, are in the wild disappearing very fast. They're disappearing for the reasons that all of you in this room know only too well: the deforestation, the growth of human populations needing more land. They're disappearing because some timber companies go in with clear cutting. They're disappearing in the heart of their range in Africa because the big multinational logging companies have come in and made roads, as they want to do in Ecuador and other parts where the forests remain untouched, to take out oil or timber. And this has led in Congo Basin and other parts of the world to what's known as the bushmeat trade. This means that although for hundreds, perhaps thousands of years, people have lived in those forests or whatever habitat it is in harmony with their world, just killing the animals they need for themselves and their families, now suddenly, because of the roads, the hunters can go in from the towns. They shoot everything, every single thing that moves that's bigger than a small rat. They sun-dry it or smoke it. Now they've got transport. They take it on the logging trucks or the mining trucks into the towns where they sell it. And people will pay more for bushmeat, as it's called, than for domestic meat. It's culturally preferred, and it's not sustainable. And the huge logging camps in the forest are now demanding meat. So the pygmy hunters in the Congo Basin who've lived there with their wonderful way of living for so many hundreds of years are now corrupted. They're given weapons, they shoot for the logging camps, they get money, their culture is being destroyed along with the animals upon whom they depend. So when the logging camp moves, there's nothing left. We talked already about the loss of human cultural diversity, and I've seen it happening with my own eyes. And the grim picture in Africa, I love Africa. And what do we see in Africa? We see deforestation. We see the desert spreading. We see massive hunger. We see disease. We see population growth in areas where there are more people living on a certain piece of land than the land can possibly support, and they're too poor to buy food from elsewhere. Were the people that we heard about yesterday on the Easter Island who cut down their last tree, were they stupid? Didn't they know what was happening? Of course, but if you've seen the crippling poverty in some of these parts of the world, it isn't a question of let's leave the tree for tomorrow. How am I going to feed my family today? Maybe I can get just a few dollars from this last tree, which will keep us going a little bit longer, and then we'll pray that something will happen to save us from the inevitable end. So this is a pretty grim picture. The one thing we have, which makes us so different from chimpanzees or other living creatures, is this sophisticated spoken language, a language with which we can tell children about things that aren't here. We can talk about the distant past, plan for the distant future, discuss ideas with each other so that the ideas can grow from the accumulated wisdom of a group. We can do it by talking to each other. We can do it through video. We can do it through the written word. And we are abusing this great power we have to be wise stewards, and we're destroying the world. In the developed world, it's in a way it's worse, because we have so much access to knowledge of the stupidity of what we're doing. Do you know, we're bringing little babies into a world where in many places the water is poisoning them and the air is harming them, and the food that's grown from the contaminated land is poisoning them. And that's not just in the far away developing world, that's everywhere. Do you know we all have about 50 chemicals in our bodies we didn't have about 50 years ago? And so many of these diseases like asthma and certain kinds of cancers are on the increase around places where filthy toxic waste is dumped. We're harming ourselves around the world, as well as harming the animals, as well as harming nature herself, Mother Nature that brought us into being. Mother Nature, where I believe we need to spend time where there's trees and flowers and birds for our good psychological development. And yet there are hundreds and hundreds of children in the developed world who never see nature because they're growing up in concrete, and all they know is virtual reality with no opportunity to go and lie in the sun or in the forest with the dappled sun specks coming down from the canopy above. As I was traveling around the world, you know, I had to leave the forest. That's where I love to be. I had to leave these fascinating chimpanzees for my students and field staff to continue studying, because finding they dwindled from about 2 million 100 years ago to about 150,000 now. I knew I had to leave the forest to do what I could to raise awareness around the world. And the more I talked about the chimpanzee's plight, the more I realized the fact that everything's interconnected, and the problems of the developing world so often stem from the greed of the developed world. And everything was joining together and making not sense. Hope lies in sense, you said. It's making a nonsense. How can we do it? Somebody said that yesterday. And as I was traveling around, I kept meeting young people who'd lost hope. They were feeling despair. They were feeling, well, it doesn't matter what we do, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Everything's hopeless. We're always being told so by the media. And then I met some who were angry, and anger that can turn to violence. And we're all familiar with that. And I have 3 little grandchildren. When some of these students would say to me, high school or university, they'd say we're angry or we're filled with despair because we feel you've compromised our future and there's nothing we can do about it. And I looked in the eyes of my little grandchildren and think how much we've harmed this planet since I was their age. I feel this deep shame. And that's why in 1991 in Tanzania, I started a program that's called Roots and Shoots. There's little brochures all around outside, and if any of you have anything to do with children and care about their future, I beg that you pick up that brochure. And Roots and Shoots is a program for hope. Roots make a firm foundation. Shoots seem tiny, but to reach the sun, they can break through brick walls. See the brick walls as all the problems that we've inflicted on this planet. Then you see it is a message of hope. Hundreds and thousands of young people around the world can break through and can make this a better world. And the most important message of Roots and Shoots is that every single individual makes a difference. Every individual has a role to play. Every one of us impacts the world around us every day. And you scientists know that you can't actually, even if you stay in bed all day, you're breathing oxygen and giving out CO2, and probably going to the loo and things like that. You're making a difference in the world. So the Roots and Shoots program involves youth in 3 kinds of projects. And these are projects to make the world around them a better place. One project to show care and concern for your own human community. One for animals, including domestic animals. And I have to say, I learned everything I know about animal behavior, even before I got to Gombe and the chimps, from my dog, Rusty, who was my childhood companion. And the third kind of project, something for the local environment. So what the kids do depends, first of all, how old are they? And we go now from preschool right through university. It's going to depend whether they're in a city or rural. It's going to depend if they're wealthy or impoverished. It's going to depend which part, say, of America they're in. We're in every state now, and the problems in Florida are different from the problems in New York. It's going to depend on which country they're in. And we're already in 60 plus countries with about 5,000 active groups. Only there are groups all over the place that I keep hearing about that I've never even heard of, because the kids are taking the program and spreading it themselves. Why? Because they're buying into it, and they're the ones who get to decide what they're going to do. It isn't something that their parents tell them or their teachers tell them. That's effective. But if they decide themselves, we want to clean this river and put the fish back that used to be there. We want to clear away the toxic soil from this area and have an organic garden. We want to go and spend time with the old people and hear their stories and record their oral histories. We want to go and work in a dog shelter. We want to learn about animals. We want to, it goes on and on. And this is very hopeful for me. As I travel around the world 300 days a year, everywhere there's a group of Roots and Shoots of different ages. Everywhere there are children with shining eyes saying, look at the difference we've made. And now comes the technology into it, because with this new way of communicating electronically, these kids can communicate with each other around the world. And if anyone's interested to help us, we've got so many ideas, but we need help. We need help to create the right kind of system that will help these young people to communicate their excitement, but also, and this is so important, to communicate their despair, to say, we've tried this and it doesn't work, what should we do? And then lo and behold, there's another group answering these kids who may be in America, maybe this is a group in Israel, saying, yeah, you did it a little bit wrong. This is how you should do it. The philosophy is very simple. It's we do not believe in violence. No violence, no bombs, no guns. That's not the way to solve problems. Violence leads to violence, at least in my view. So how do we solve? The tools for solving the problems are knowledge and understanding. Know the facts, but see how they fit in the big picture. Hard work and persistence, don't give up. And love and compassion, leading to respect for all life. How many more minutes? 2? 1?
One.
2. I'm going to take 2. Are you going to come and drag me off? Anyway, so basically, Roots and Shoots is beginning to change young people's lives. It's what I'm devoting most of my energy to. And I believe that a group like this can have a very major impact, not just because you can share technology with us, but because so many of you have children. And if you take this program out and give it to your children, they have such a good opportunity to go out and do good because they've got parents like you. And it's been so clear how much you all care about trying to make this world a better place. It's very encouraging. But the kids do ask me, and it won't take more than 2 minutes, I promise. The kids say, Dr. Jane, do you really have hope for the future? You travel, you see all these horrible things happening. Firstly, the human brain. I don't need to say anything about that. Now that we know what the problems are around the world, human brains like yours are rising to solve those problems. And we've talked a lot about that. Secondly, the resilience of nature. We can destroy a river and we can bring it back to life. We can see a whole area desolated and it can be brought back to bloom again with time or a little help. And thirdly, the last speaker talked about the indomitable humans, or the speaker before last talked about the indomitable human spirit. We are surrounded by the most amazing people who do things that seem to be absolutely impossible. Nelson Mandela, I take a little piece of limestone from Robben Island prison where he labored for 27 years and came out with so little bitterness. He could lead his people from the horror of apartheid without a bloodbath. Even after the 11th of September, and I was in New York, and I felt the fear. Nevertheless, there was so much human courage, so much love, and so much compassion. And then as I went around the country after that and felt the fear that was leading to people feeling they couldn't worry about the environment anymore in case they seemed not to be patriotic, and I was trying to encourage them, somebody came up with a little quotation from Mahatma Gandhi. If you look back through human history, you see that every evil regime has been overcome by good. And just after that, a woman brought me this little bell. And I want to end on this note. She said, if you're talking about hope and peace, ring this. This bell is made from metal from a diffused landmine from the killing fields of Pol Pot, one of the most evil regimes in human history, where people are now beginning to put their lives back together after the regime has crumbled. So, yes, there is hope. And where is the hope? Is it out there with the politicians? It's in our hands. It's in your hands and my hands and those of our children. It's really up to us. We're the ones who can make a difference. If we lead lives where we consciously leave the lightest possible ecological footprints, if we buy the things that are ethical for us to buy and don't buy the things that are not, we can change the world overnight. Thank you.
Okay, so hopefully that was something very interesting. I know that it might have been difficult to follow her speech because she was speaking at the normal pace of a native speaker of English. But I can sort of give a summary of her speech. She began by talking about her experiences in the jungle and seeing these strange combinations, like a tribal chief who had a laptop computer and solar panels that were heating and pumping water into the village. And her question was, is this a good thing? Is this considered progress for us to bring modern technology into the wild? And she then talks about what her experiences were since 1960. She's been studying these chimpanzees in Africa, in Tanzania, in Africa. And what she saw, actually her great discovery, was seeing one chimpanzee that she had named David Graybeard. She saw him using a piece of grass as a tool. And this was the first time a biologist had witnessed an animal using a tool. And what it led to was a discussion of, should we consider chimpanzees to be more than animals? Are they a type of humans? because before this point, only humans were known to use tools. And then she talked about the emotions that she witnessed amongst the chimpanzees. They have all the same range of emotions as most humans, and what they lack is what we consider to be formal language. But they don't actually lack language. They do have a way to communicate. And what I love about her speech is she gives the chimpanzee greeting. And this is an actual way that chimpanzees communicate with each other and say hello. So chimpanzees actually do use language, and they experience emotions, and they do something that's also very human, which is to recognize themselves in a mirror. And then she tells a great story about a chimpanzee that liked to play a game on the computer, and you could bribe her with a raisin. So if any of you don't know the word bribe, it means to promise something in order to get someone to do something you want. So they would bribe her with one raisin, which is a dried grape. And the problem that we have now is because of so much deforestation. I'm going to write that in the chat. Does anyone know what deforestation is?
Yeah, yes, destroying a forest.
Exactly, destroying the forest. And what happens as a result of deforestation?
After that area could be a desert.
The area can be turned into a desert.
And a lot of creatures died out because of that.
Yeah, so animals die because that was their natural habitat. And another thing that happened is human crops, like agriculture, was negatively affected. So they didn't have the ability to grow food and provide for their families. So they started doing things like hunting bushmeat. And Dr. Jane Goodall explains what bushmeat is, but did anyone catch that? What does it mean, bushmeat?
Probably the meat of wild animals. Is it local people prefer to eat such wild animal meat?
So in Africa, they would rather eat bushmeat, which is the meat of any wild animal, like anything from a rabbit to a pig, or even in some cases a chimpanzee. So this is something that's a big problem in Africa because they don't have enough food in some areas. Some people have begun eating chimpanzees and gorillas, and it's a big problem in Africa. So she talked about, Dr. Goodall talked about efforts of conservation, which is a good term for anyone who's interested in the natural world. What does it mean, conservation?
To conserve.
To conserve. To preserve or to conserve. And conservation specifically refers to nature. So refers to forests and animals living in those forests and preserving fresh water. That's all a part of conservation. So you can also use the term conservation to refer to protecting wild animals. So some of those animals are placed on an endangered species list, and they are protected, meaning that it becomes illegal to kill those animals. So I don't think chimpanzees ever became endangered, but Dr. Goodall said that they went from being 2 million to 150,000, which is a huge decline. So the effort was to conserve these chimpanzees and make sure they don't become endangered or even extinct. And then she talked about her program, which is called Roots and Shoots, which I think sounds very interesting. And roots are the part of the plant that go down into the ground, and the shoots are the part of the plant that go up towards the sun. And she talked a little bit about what that program does. Did anyone catch what Roots and Shoots does?
I catch the youngsters disappear, and she trying to change that feeling.
So she thinks that young people are not involved in conservation and protecting our environment. So Roots and Shoots is to get them involved, to get youngsters, which is a way of saying children. Youngsters equals children. It's a kind of slang way of saying children. To get them involved in programs like having an organic garden or protecting wild areas. So my question for everyone is, what can we do to help protect our environment? So I'll type that in the chat. What can we do to help protect our environment? So Ken, do you want to answer that question? What do you think we should do to protect the environment?
Talking about my life, I bring some garbage to garbage recycling center, and yeah, so it's a kind of a minor, maybe not so big challenge. Actually, everyone can do that, and local government and government support or urge people to do that actually.
So getting people to recycle and use their recycling program, that's a huge thing we can do. That's probably the easiest thing for all people to get involved with. What else could we do?
Yeah, kind of networking, nowadays, people connect to the internet from the wild too. So that kind of thing, and that means local people can get the information. So maybe, for example, before the internet era, mobile phone era, African farmer couldn't decide the price they sell the product, farming product. But nowadays, people can check the proper price by the mobile phone. So they can sell. Yeah.
They can figure out the price for their product. Yeah. That's a great idea.
That's solves the poverty in Africa. So maybe that kind of thing, because behind this program, poverty, I think, exists.
Yes.
So knowledge and solving poverty, can help to solve this issue.
I think that's a great point. It's all about knowledge, and if we're aware of what's happening in the world, we can do something about it. Good, that's a good answer. Let's hear from someone else. Maybe Ming. What can we do to help protect our environment? What do you do, or what do you think you could do?
I think one of the very important thing is to for us, everything we do has environmental impact, and you can't change what other people do, so you should start with very little things like using less plastic, try to recycle everything that can be recycled, such as paper, plastic, cups, use electronic. I heard use batteries are very bad for the environment. They can pollute.
Very toxic.
Pollute drinkable water, so you should never throw them into the water. There's just because we use so many electronic nowadays, and there are components that we can recycle, reuse. But the least you can do is to dispose of them properly, so they don't, to minimize the impact on the environment.
I think we definitely have to find a way to recycle our electronics, because so many people have computers and cell phones, that all of these materials are sometimes very toxic to the environment, especially the water.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And last thing is just to buy product that's energy certified, so
Mm-hmm.
you use less power,
Mm-hmm.
and just to find ways to reduce your carbon footprint.
Mm-hmm. What do you
Yeah.
think about solar energy? Could we add more solar energy?
I think that is a good concept, but it's not as cost effective
Mm-hmm.
or widely available as petroleum and
Mm-hmm.
coal or wind energy.
Maybe
So
wind energy could be used more.
yeah. But it's
Also,
definitely a cleaner source of
yes.
energy.
We need to find sources of clean energy to protect our environment. Okay, and what about for our animals? Let's see. Let's hear from maybe Jose. What can we do to protect endangered animals, like the chimpanzee? Jose?
It's me?
Yes. What do you think? What can we do to protect animals?
Well, here in South Brazil, I live in South Brazil.
Mhm.
It's rarely to find apes,
Mhm.
but here there are many laws, and the government has one department that looks after for the protection who live in the wild.
Mhm. Mhm.
For example, we have one animal uh, that may classified by an ape
Mhm.
that you call the bugios that exist in South Brazil.
Mhm.
These animals, because the environment was used by plantations for agriculture,
Mhm.
spending some areas of the agricultures. The animals uh, will are coming near the cities,
Mhm.
and the people is alarmed with this
Mhm.
situation,
Mhm.
and they create departments or zoo
Mhm.
to look after for those animals because they don't have a natural environment to back
Mhm.
and must to live in the zoo.
Yeah, so some
Okay.
people, yeah, I think that's a great idea because some people think zoos are just cages for animals, but zoos actually do really great work to protect the animals, and they provide them with medicine, they give them food, and they conserve the species. So they're good at taking good care of endangered animals. So I actually think zoos are really good for animals because some animals would not survive in the wild. They would die. And they can go to a zoo and they'll be taken care of. And then they can live a small life in a like in a not a cage but a enclosure. And they can live they can be happier there. Um, so let's hear from David before we finish up. David, what can we do to protect animals?
I think the most important thing that I can do is vote to elect a government that have a policy to protect the animals and take care of the nature.
Hmm. It
But
must be,
Maureen,
yes.
what's the difference between ape and monkey?
They are a different species. So apes are gorillas, chimpanzees, and bonobos, which is another type of ape that is not that familiar to most people. And humans are apes. And then monkeys are They're the smaller animals that they look like apes, or they look kind of like chimpanzees or bonobos, but they have the tail.
Okay. Okay.
So they're not exactly the same type of animal, but we are very similar in our DNA is very similar to chimpanzees. It's like 98% of human DNA matches with 98% of chimpanzee DNA. So they're like our brothers almost.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that must be important in Brazil because you have such a diverse forest population. There's so many
Yes.
animals.
Yes.
It's probably very important in Brazil to take care of the forests in the Amazon.
Yes. Yes.
So it's an important topic for my Brazilian students. Okay, well, that's it for today, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and thanks for joining my class.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Have a
Take
good
care,
day.
everyone.
Thank you very
Bye.
much.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.